If you are in the know, you would probably question our decision to bring these two near identical cars into a single feature. But hear me out, because there is a tangent. The strong hybrid system has been supplied by Toyota, and Suzuki's contribution to the collaboration is the AllGrip four-wheel drive system, along with, of course, the very platform on which these two cars are constructed. It would be pretty obvious to talk about the strong hybrid technology using the Urban Cruiser HyRyder and the AllGrip four-wheel drive system with the Grand Vitara. But we have seen several times in the past that Maruti calibrates foreign technology into its cars in a much better way than even the creators of the said technology. Take, for example, the 1.3-litre multi-jet diesel engine that was sourced from Fiat. In all its life, in use by 5 different manufacturers across 24 car models, Maruti tuned that engine in the best possible way, and that holds true for also the automated manual gearbox that it sourced from Magneti Marelli. Tata could never really do that big or that fine a job as Maruti. And that got us thinking, how has Maruti Suzuki worked with the strong hybrid system sourced from Toyota's Urban Cruiser HyRyder, and whether that makes the Grand Vitara as good or even better than this car itself. And then we flip things up to see if the Grand Vitara's four-wheel drive system, which is the AllGrip, works just as effectively in the Urban Cruiser HyRyder. So it's essentially reversal of the roles. So you see, this is not a plain Jane review of two different cars, which are really one car separated by very different and very unique technologies. But because these are from two different manufacturers, let's first dive a little deep into the hygiene factors that constitute a review. So let's get on with the design. I don't think either of the design efforts stand out as being instantly pretty, but in my view, the Toyota has a bit more flair and a slightly more rich feel to it. It also has design similarities to the global Toyota products, which is essentially defined by the seamless bonnet which flows into the upper part, and of course, the front end is completed by the honeycomb grille section at the bottom. The rest of the profile of the two cars is pretty similar, but somehow the Urban Cruiser HyRyder, I don't know, somehow just looks a bit more polished. The thing with the Grand Vitara is that it looks a little weird with this frankly gaping grille unit, and even the wheels. I think Toyota has managed to procure better design. What separates the two cars further is the light signature, and you can tell one from the other from the illumination of the tail light itself. Inside, things are exactly the same between the two cars. The same seat construction, the same steering wheel design, the same dash layout, even the roof felt material and the mesh jacket that sits under the sunroof is the same. So there is nothing really separating the two cars. Both the HyRyder and the Grand Vitara are made in the Toyota factory, and you get a sense of quality that otherwise Maruti cars really lack in general. There's somehow a little bit more finesse to the whole construction of the two cars. Things feel robustly installed. Everything that you touch and feel feels like it's been built to last. And there are no irregular panel gaps and stuff like that. Even the click sound of the glove box when you close it is extremely satisfying. And just the fact that the Toyota that we have here is extremely well turned out is not to suggest that the Maruti is bad or compromised in any way. It's mainly about the treatment at the workshop that the car has been subjected to that kind of has given us a bit of a disappointing experience, I guess. But sitting in the HyRyder, there is no escaping the fact that the cabin is decidedly Maruti. The design, the stalks, the buttons, it's all very typical Maruti stuff. Both the cars are pretty even on the features list, and they are very loaded. The usual suspects are all there. The whole connectivity suite with Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, there's wireless charging as well. Not in this one because it does not come in the all-wheel drive model or the trim, but everything else, the 6 airbags, ventilated seats, all those good things are there. So it's very feature-packed. There's a good history on the cruiser range of Toyotas, and of course the most iconic is the Land Cruiser, but we'll discuss that some other time. The HyRyder sports the Urban Cruiser tag, but the very first Urban Cruiser was in fact introduced in 2009. And a very interesting bit is that with the 1.4-litre D40 engine, it was the lowest carbon dioxide producing four-wheel drive car in the world at the time. Anyway, we'll talk about the efficiency and the fuel saving with the Toyota supplied strong hybrid system in the Grand Vitara. Let's focus on Suzuki's four-wheel drive system in the HyRyder. Suzuki developed its first four-wheel model in the year 1970. That was the original Jimny, or the LJ10 or the LJ10. And ever since then, over the last 5 decades, Suzuki has been making the most basic but sturdy and steadfast off-road machines. The Gypsy that we had in India was the SJ platform, the SJ410 and the SJ413. Basically, the engine changed from 1000 cc's to 1300 cc, and the Gypsy was always lovingly and rightfully called the mountain goat. Suzuki was never synonymous with off-roading. That's been the world of Jeep, Land Rover, Toyota, Nissan. But what has now evolved as the AllGrip technology piece has a great legacy in the off-road universe. The AllGrip name was introduced in the early 2010s with the SX4 or S-Cross, depending on which market you are in. And ever since then, it has evolved very strongly. The Suzuki supplied off-road technology works just fine in the display of skills by the Toyota in this equation. There is something to know here. The AllGrip technology is divided in 3 different categories: Auto, Select and Pro. And the one that is offered in the Urban Cruiser HyRyder and of course also the Grand Vitara is the one that sits in the middle, Select. AllGrip Auto works through a viscous coupling, and AllGrip Select works through an electronic coupling. And there are 3 different modes to alter its behavior and application. It's quite an interesting system and has the ESP of the car doing all sorts of crazy things. The AllGrip variant comes only with a 5-speed manual gearbox, and the 1.5-litre engine makes about 103 bhp and 137 Newton meters. When driving in the auto mode, it's a pretty straightforward and simple mechanism through the ESP. If the whole system senses slippage, it automatically sends compensating amount of torque to the rear wheels through the E-coupling, and the moment traction is gained, it becomes a two-wheel drive car again. But things get a bit more complex in the other modes, and the AllGrip system works through sensors that feed in information like the steering angle, the amount of throttle input, etc. And based on that, the car's brain anticipates how the vehicle is going to be driven. In the sport mode, the throttle map is sharpened up and there is higher torque supply from low throttle opening levels. And after reading the data from the sensors and predicting what the car is going to behave like, the right amount of power is sent to the rear wheels to allow for a slightly sportier driving experience. And when you get into the snow mode, which is essentially controlled through a dial down here, the ESP works its magic by reducing the wheel slip and gaining traction under the tires. Again, it is essentially the function of the sensors, and it predicts the vehicle motion based on the inputs and applies corrective power even before a skid or a slide really occurs. And then when you get into the lock function, which is a button that you press just next to the dial, the power is sent in almost a 50-50 ratio between the front and the rear axles, and the ESP applies brakes to the slipping wheels while modulating and controlling the torque that is supplied to the wheels that have traction. So that was a bit of a technical explainer. Now, I have been throwing this car through some very rough trail sections, and it seems to be enjoying the game very well. The steering does feel a little dead, but at least it's not vague, so you can feel a bit engaged with the car. But just overall, it's brilliant. It's a very playful thing. I've now shifted into the Grand Vitara. I've been driving the HyRyder for a fair amount of time now. And even, to be honest, I have driven the Grand Vitara a fair bit a few months ago and also now for some time. To drive, they serve the purpose, but there is no fun to be had from behind the wheel. Neither of them are comparable to, say, a Seltos on driver engagement. But the dynamics otherwise are okay. The suspension is nicely judged and it absorbs the bumps quite nicely. And the chassis is also fairly okay. It exhibits good high-speed stability, and that's very crucial. There is no word on the crash worthiness, but because this is based on the Global C platform by Suzuki, and so is the HyRyder, there is strong reason to believe that they both should perform well enough, if not go completely all stars. And now let's come to the main reason of why we have both the cars here. And of course, we've already talked about the HyRyder. The Grand Vitara is here because of its strong hybrid system, which of course is supplied by Toyota. The engine that drives this hybrid setup is a 1.5-litre Atkinson cycle engine. The other engine is also a 1.5-litre petrol, but that is a 4-cylinder unit that runs on the traditional and mainstream auto cycle. Typically, the thermal efficiency of the auto cycle engines is about 25 to 30%. The rest of the combusted fuel and air mixture is lost as heat. The Atkinson cycle engines, they push the thermal efficiency to about 40 or a little bit more than that. And the strong hybrid system is courtesy of a 0.76 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery and a motor that is good for almost 80 horsepower and 141 Newton meters. We wish that the battery was bigger because the operating range on electricity alone would have been extended, and the motor anyway has decent power and torque figures, so just driving this on electricity alone for a fair distance would have been extremely nice. But the net combined power with the 1.5-litre engine and also the battery and motor setup is about 115 horsepower. The power is just adequate and you should not really expect engaging acceleration, but it will suffice for the most part, and it will not bring you a smile, but the gain is going to be huge on fuel consumption. In fact, talking of frugality, we have been averaging between 4 and 5 liters for every 100 kilometers that we've driven. So that's between 20 and 25 kilometers per liter, which is insane because we have genuinely been driving with a fair amount of heavy foot application, and we're just blown away. I've heard stories of people getting even 30 kilometers to a liter from this hybrid setup, which is absolutely bonkers good. This one also gets drive modes. You have a complete button that's dedicated to EV mode. Unfortunately, that's not available right now because there is not enough charge in the battery. But next to the EV mode button, you have drive modes. You can go from eco to normal, and then you get into power mode as well, which just sharpens up the throttle response a little bit. It's not something that's going to make a night and day difference, but it's just a good to have item. What we have discovered by having the Urban Cruiser HyRyder and the Grand Vitara side by side is that the collaboration between Toyota and Suzuki is pretty harmonious, and it has allowed for technology sharing and execution to such an extent where a Maruti Suzuki feels just as good as a Toyota. As products, they sure have their small share of issues, but both Toyota and Maruti needed a product in this category desperately. And the market numbers suggest that their collective sales are a big concern for the Koreans, which means things can only get better from here.